So I'm going to go over the different foramens and canals in the skull. So these holes that we see, that we call as foramens, are meant for the passage of blood vessels and cranial nerves, okay, most important nerves in the brain. So we'll start with the orbit. So this is the orbit, which is sockets for the placement of the eye. This is the nasal cavity. And you can see the middle portion, that's called the septum, which separates the left and right. And the top part, actually this is a combination of two. The top part is part of ethmoid bone, and the bottom part is vomer, which is a bone by itself. Then this is inferior nasal conchas on both sides, that's a bone. And then the superior nasal conchas, which you can see here, those and the middle and the superior, which you cannot see here, those are part of the ethmoid bone. Okay, so ethmoid bone comes almost to the halfway of the nose. Okay, and then you have two other bones, which is vomer and inferior nasal conchas. So let's start with the foramen right here on top of the orbit. This one is called the superior orbital foramen. Okay, so that means it is a foramen which is on top of the orbit. And likewise, you have two here, one here and one here. These are called as infraorbital or inferior orbital foramen. And then you have two fissures right here. Okay, so here you can see, let me bring it a little close. You can see two fissures. Fissures are like long, jagged holes. And here, if you see, there is one right here, sorry, on the top, right? So one right here and one right here. So the top one is called as superior orbital fissure, and the bottom one is called inferior orbital fissure. And if you see next to that, next to the superior orbital fissure right here, there's a little opening. That is for optic canal. Okay, that is called as optic canal. That is for the optic nerve to go from the sockets all the way to the occipital region. Okay, so that is the occipital canal. Okay, and here in the mandible, we have a few. So there is one right here, and this is called as mental foramen. And I don't think I can remove this. So if I turn it over, and in the mandible, you can see one right here on both sides, okay, right here and right here. This is called as mandibular foramen, and this is mainly, that is where you get the novocaine. Okay, so a nerve goes through that, and that numbs the whole jaw. Okay, and here is the styloid process and the mastoid process. Anyway, so let me remove the top portion of the cranium, and then we can see the foramens inside. So here we can see, I'm going to keep it like this. So this is the sphenoid bone, right, the butterfly-shaped sphenoid bone. And if I tilt it to an angle, here you can see these are the optic canal. Okay, so this is the same one that we saw here. So this is optic canal, okay, these two. And then this part here, this is the ethmoid bone, and I'll come back to that. Let me explain that later. So right now I'm just going to go over the different foramens. So there is a jagged foramen right here, okay, right here, okay, next to this wing, the greater wing of sphenoid. And then there is another one next to this. There's one on the side, and then there's one to the front. So this one is called as foramen ovale. It's oval in shape, right? And next to that, closer to the sphenoid bone, this one is called as foramen lacerum. Okay, so ovale, foramen lacerum. This one is foramen spinosum, and the one which is in the front is called as foramen rotundum. So again, foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, foramen lacerum, and foramen spinosum. And these are all in the sphenoid bone. If we come to the occipital, temporal and occipital, there is one right here, okay, one right here, and one right here. This one is for carotid artery, and this one is for jugular vein. This is called as carotid canal, and this is called as jugular foramen. Okay, so it is like jagged. Then we have the big one where the spinal cord passes through, right, to the occipital region. This is called as foramen magnum. Okay, so again you can see the jugular canal and the carotid canal, jugular foramen and the carotid canal. And here if you see next to this, okay, so on the side of this, there is one here. This is for hypoglossal nerve. This is called as hypoglossal canal. Okay, so those are, and you can actually see them on this side as well. It's a little harder to identify them, but I can go over these. So again, this one close to the body of the sphenoid. This is foramen ovale. This is lacetum, and then here is spinosum. You cannot see the rotundum here. And here you can see the jugular very well. So this is the jugular, this is carotid. And this is the styloid process of the temporal bone. And next to that is styloid foramen, which we don't need. All right, so those are the different foramens in the skull.